my name is Dr. Irene Mavrakakis. I'd like to preface my presentation by briefly summarizing the root of our problems. How do we discover the best information with which to guide our actions? How do we discover the best information with which to order mankind? The great Austrian economist and 1974 Nobel laureate F.A. Hayek, in some of his seminal writings like The Use of Knowledge in Society and the aptly titled Competition as a Discovery Procedure, helped us realize that economic competition is how we discover and spread superior information throughout society. It is the freedom of nearly 8 billion minds in their roles as consumers to freely trade their private property for what they calculate to be the best, which motivates companies to innovate and copy each other's innovations, information, and ideas, thus inadvertently turning the entire planet into a global supercomputer via the system of competitive knowledge and discovery. For example, an engineer working for Honda in Tokyo discovers superior information by inventing power door locks. The freedom of customers to freely trade their wealth for the Honda power door locks motivates BMW, Ford, Toyota, and all the other competitors to copy the power door locks ideas, thus spreading superior information and subsequent order throughout society. Just like in the Olympics, we can discover the best athletes in the world due to global competition, so does having the freedom to trade with everyone in the world allow us to have the best ideas to compete and spread globally, thus ensuring the best possible global order. Via advertising, competitors are motivated to spread the potential usefulness and superiority of their products and ideas, and as well as pointing out the defects, inferiority of their competitors, thus accelerating the need to compete, copy, spread superior information and subsequent order. As cost-cutting ideas emerge and inevitably spread via competition, leading relative prices to continuously fall, new profitable ideas easily arise and once again spread via competition in an endless cycle of knowledge generation and innovation. For example, computers were once very expensive, but once the price of making them came down enough, people easily realized that everyone should have one and could have one. That gave birth to a computerized world and the internet and all the great things that flow from it. The more wealth is produced, the more wealth must be offered in exchange for labor as companies compete against each other by offering higher wages for the labor they need, which helps explain why the economic pie grows for everyone. Government or public sector orders lack incentives to innovate or copy existing innovations, since the wealth that sustains them comes from taxes and not by acting based on information superior to competitors. Government regulations are coercive, competition-less monopoly information, which is not subject to continuous replacement via competition, so they paralyze entire industries, slowing competitive knowledge discovery, driving up costs, more lawyers, regulators, bureaucrats, and making criminals out of people who harm no one, but just prefer to do things differently. As this image above helps illustrate, this explains why increasingly regulated, paralyzed healthcare sector has grown from consuming 5% of the economy in 1960 to over 20% today, culminating in the current CovidMania tyranny. In this image, we can see how the same paralysis happens across all sectors, not just medicine. By comparison, the software IT sector has few regulations. There is no American Computer Programmers Association monopolizing and paralyzing the knowledge relating to software like the American Medical Association does for medicine, so free competition motivates the creation and spread of innovations at breakneck speed. The former Soviet Union had plenty of highly educated scientists and experts who arrogantly mocked religious traditions and whose ultimately inferior central plans required the coercion of millions, as still happens in Cuba and North Korea. But they were thoroughly crushed by free Americans, their Bibles, their traditions with respected private property, and thus emergent superior competitive knowledge discovery. The classic nighttime image above helps explain the difference between competitive private free orders and monopolistic government coerced orders. Keep your eye on how information arises and spreads via competition and continuously restructures the social order. Since the Soviet Union had no competitive knowledge discovery, it quickly got many experts coursing millions in various industries. The scientific monopoly expert or great leader was Trifon Lysenko. His competition-immune ideas relating to farming led to massive famines in the USSR and later the Great Chinese Famine, which claimed over 20 million lives. Being a favorite of Stalin and also on good terms with his successor, Nikita Khrushchev, it wasn't until Khrushchev's downfall in 1963 that Lysenko was thoroughly discredited. From his wiki, we read, In 1964, physicist Andrei Sakharov spoke out against Lysenko in the General Assembly of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR. He is responsible for the shameful backwardness of Soviet biology and of genetics in particular, for the dissemination of pseudoscientific views, for adventurism, for the degradation of learning, and for the defamation, firing, arrest, even death of many genuine scientists. Having our own competition-immune, top-down bureaucracies like the CDC, AMA, FDA, and NIAID, we too suffer from a massive lack of innovation in medicine and evolve our own Lysenkos, with Anthony Fauci being the perfect example. I'd like to conclude this preface by highlighting the fact that what we really need is not necessarily the right answers, but the public's understanding of how freedom and resulting competitive knowledge discovery is what will provide the best means of discovering them.